Well, hello everybody, Happy New Year. It's Heidi Allen MP for South Cambridgeshire here. First of all, I'd like to thank my constituents for their patience. I have had the most incredible number of emails from you, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We're certainly well past the 1,000 mark now of emails about Brexit. And I've been directing you to my website because I haven't been able to reply to them all individually. So you've probably seen my video of my meeting I held recently in Sawston. But as we go back to Parliament on Monday the 7th of January, I thought I'd just let you know where I think we're up to with the whole Brexit vote, etc. So just to recap, the deal, for want of a better description, that the Prime Minister has secured has two parts: the Withdrawal Agreement, which is the legally binding 500 odd pages of how we will leave and our financial commitments, etc. And then the Political Declaration, which is a significantly shorter document, 20-something pages, which describes our aspirations, our hopes for what the trade deal might look like in the future. And crucially, that isn't legally binding. It's just best endeavours, how we hope that trade will progress in the future. And you will know that the meaningful vote, Parliament's vote on the deal as a whole, was delayed in December because it was clear that that vote would be lost and the Prime Minister wanted to go back to Europe to see whether she could tweak some of the things that people had concerns about. There are broadly two areas of concern. The backstop, as it's referred to, which is part of the Withdrawal Agreement, which essentially says that if we can't come up with frictionless trade in the future, then it would compromise the Good Friday Agreement. Essentially, if we have different regulatory systems, different customs systems on the island of Ireland, then you would need to have a border in place, a hard border for checks. And the Good Friday Agreement, which was very hard and bloodily fought for, coming through the troubles in Northern and Southern Ireland, says that there cannot ever be a physical border there. But the problem with the backstop, which is there, and I understand and appreciate why it's there, just in case a deal can never be made, means that we would have to stay in the customs union with Europe indefinitely. And for certainly a lot of parliamentarians, that infringes on our sovereignty, the fact that we can't unilaterally pull out if we want to. I understand, I think there's a good reason why the backstop is there, but for a lot of MPs that's just unacceptable. For me, the bigger issue is the Political Declaration, so the forward-looking part of the agreement, which sets out how we hope our trade deal will look in the future. And the part for me that is worrying is that it is not legally binding, which means if tomorrow we have, in this country, a different Prime Minister, somebody who is more sympathetic to a harder Brexit, for example, could decide, actually, you know what, I'm going to rip that up. I want no deal at all. I want the UK to exist on WTO rules. For me, that is far too risky. I cannot put our economy in the hands of the unknown, not knowing what our trade will look like in the future. So that's more of the issue for me than it is the backstop. Now, the Prime Minister has, over the Christmas period, spoken to European leaders again. We do need to wait and see what she says to the House of Commons this week in terms of whether she has made any changes or improvements to that backstop in the Withdrawal Agreement or the future trade deal in terms of confidence. But certainly listening to her on this morning, it's Sunday the 6th today, listening to her there, it didn't sound to me like there were any significant changes. So if that is the case, if nothing significantly has changed and I still have the same concerns, then I will be voting against that deal when it comes to the House. There's still a little bit of debate as to when that vote might happen. If the Prime Minister can prove that she has significant new aspects, if you like, to her deal, then she can ask a new business of the House motion, a fresh 5 days of debate and vote. If the deal actually doesn't look very different at all from that which we had before Christmas, then I think it's more likely that we would only have the 2 days that we were denied in December, which would mean that the vote could come sooner. But all in all, and confirmed by the Prime Minister this morning, it looks like the vote will be sometime in the week of the 14th of January. And as I say, unless things significantly change, I will be voting against it. And the House of Commons, I suspect, will be voting against it as a whole because nothing really has changed from where we were in December. And that does mean that constitutionally we'll be in unprecedented waters. But 2 amendments that I backed, tabled by Dominic Grieve in the last 12 months, will give us some security. One, the meaningful vote, the very reason that Parliament is now having a say and will have a vote on the deal. And secondly, if the vote should fail, if the deal is not approved by the House of Commons, that Parliament should have a role in what happens next. And, you know, I absolutely understand people's nervousness. The clock is ticking. If we have no deal agreed at the 29th of March, then we do come out of the EU on a cliff edge, as people describe it. There would be no deal in place, and crucially that means the 2-year transition period would not exist either. That only comes with securing a deal. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other routes out of this. And I and numerous colleagues in the House of Commons will not be bullied by that ticking clock to back that deal just because we're terrified of no deal, because there are other options to us. For me, because this is the biggest decision we will make in generations, if Parliament cannot come up with a cohesive view about what should happen next, then I do believe we should put the Prime Minister's deal to the electorate alongside Remain and ask them whether they truly want us to have that deal and to have that future relationship with the EU. You know, one of the other options that's been talked about a lot, Norway plus, sort of Norway, which means staying in the single market, plus a customs union. I think maybe a year ago, that would have had support in the House of Commons, and I probably would have backed it. But now I don't think it will have that support anymore. If nothing else, over the last year, people have learnt a lot more about the detail. And essentially staying in the single market and the customs union through a Norway plus type model means we'd have, I guess, the benefits of those aspects of being in the EU, but we wouldn't have MEPs, we wouldn't have a seat at the EU table, so we would be rule takers, not rule makers. So people are rightly questioning, well, what's the point? How is that better than what we have now? To those that say a second referendum or a people's vote will be undemocratic, you know, I just think almost 3 years have passed. The electorate is a little different now. I think our priorities around immigration are a little different now. The Prime Minister has absolutely done her best and secured the best possible deal that was available, a bespoke deal from the EU. I genuinely believe that. But is it good enough? And what is more democratic than your representatives, so MPs like me, saying this decision is too big for us to take on our own? We need to check that the people of this country are happy with it too. I think there is no greater display of democracy if we were to do that. We would probably need to have Article 50 extended. That would be fine. The European Court of Justice have already said that they would be happy to extend Article 50 if for something very different, for example, another referendum, or even to revoke it and to stay in. They would not allow extension or delay of Article 50 purely for her to go back and renegotiate again. They've been very clear, just to tweak the deal. You know, the deal is the deal. It's the best that's available from the EU in a bespoke sense. They would not allow us to extend it just to go back and ask whether we can change that slightly. So that's my sense of where we are at the moment. And I want to finish really by reassuring my constituents that there is no way that I nor Parliament will allow no deal. Quite simply, we will wrestle back control after that vote has happened. We need that to happen first, then to put our views of people's vote, whether it's a Norway deal, etc., in the House of Commons to find a way forward. Nor should you be worried about a general election. You know, that would require an act of Parliament. It would require 2/3 of the House of Commons to back it. And I can tell you there are as many MPs on the Labour Party side who do not want Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister as there are on our side. So a general election is not something to be fearful of either. But we will find a way through this that protects our economy, that protects EU citizens' rights living in the UK and our UK citizens who are living in the EU. And you have my absolute word, and I want as best I can to give you the confidence that in the vote and the weeks and the days ahead, I will, without any hesitation whatsoever, put my country and South Cambridge's best interests first. Thank you.